Hello, and welcome to my QTP video tutorial, where I will be showing you how to use a do-while loop. In this video, I'll be answering the following three questions. First, what is a do-while loop? Second, what is a real-world example of how to use a do-while loop? And third, how do I write the code to use it? As a reminder, to stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button. This moves us to our first topic, which asks the question, what is a do-while loop? A do-while loop is used when you would like for something to continue to happen so long as a particular condition is still being met. This moves us to our second topic, which asks the question, what is a real-world example of how to use a do-while loop? Let's say you're taking a trip to the grocery store to buy all of the cans of green beans that you can find. When you get there, you need to find the cans of green beans. Once there, reach your hand out, grab one of the cans, and then place it into the cart. Then continue to repeat those same steps until there are no more cans of green beans available. So, if there were 3 cans there, you would do those steps 3 times. However, if there were 20 cans there, you would do those steps 20 times. This now moves us to the third topic, which asks the question, how do I write the code to use it? I'll now show you how to write the code in QTP for a do-while loop. For this exercise, we will be using the real-world example that I discussed a couple of slides ago. We will assume that there are 3 cans of green beans available, and we would like to purchase all 3. We will begin by creating what I like to call a flag variable. I will use a variable named available, but you can use whatever name you would like for this. I will create the variable by typing the word available, then a space, then an equal sign, then a space, then the word true. We'll be using this in our script to tell QTP whether or not there are still cans of green beans available. If there are, the loop should continue. However, if there are not, the loop should stop. We're now ready to create our do loop. We do this by hitting the enter key to create a new line, then type the word do and hit the spacebar. You'll notice that once I hit the spacebar, QTP automatically recognized that I'm looking to create a do loop, so it filled in some code for me. It created an empty line on line 3, and it placed the words loop while false on line 4. QTP has defaulted the loop while condition checker to be at the end of the do loop. Actually, the loop while condition checker can be at either the beginning or the end of the do loop. I'll be showing you both of those ways. However, we'll begin by taking a look at the loop while condition checker being at the end of the do loop. We now need to update line 4 to continue to loop while the available variable equals true. We can do this by replacing the word false with available equals true. By doing this, we are telling QTP to continue to loop so long as the available variable equals true. Now, move the cursor back to the empty line at line 3. We need to create what I like to call a counter variable. We will use this to be able to determine how many loops have been made. I will be using a variable named I, but you can use whatever name you would like for this. So type the letter I, space, equals, space, I, space, plus, space, 1. Now, I'll walk you through how a counter variable works. The first time a loop occurs, the I variable will have a value of 0 since it has never been used. We will add a 1 to it, so the resulting value will be 1. The second time a loop occurs, the I variable will already equal 1, and we will again be adding 1 to it, which will result in a value of 2. The third time a loop occurs, the I variable will already equal 2, and we will again be adding 1 to it, which will result in a value of 3. We now need to create an if-then-else statement to tell QTP how to respond depending on whether there are still any cans of green beans available to place in our cart. For more information on if-then-else statements and how to use them in your scripts, please watch one of my other videos where I go into more information on those. The condition that we will be checking in this if-then-else statement is whether I is less than or equal to 3. The reason we are doing this is that there are only 3 cans of green beans available, so after we have already placed the 3 cans of green beans in our cart, there is no need to continue trying to grab more of them. Assuming that there are still cans of green beans to place in the cart, we will be displaying a message box that will show the number of cans of green beans that we have now placed in our cart. And we can do this by moving down to line 5, typing the message box command, and then just a string value that we would like to display. So I will say number of cans of green beans in cart. Then I'll concatenate onto that the I variable, which will give us the iteration number. So for example, the first loop through would display number of cans of green beans in cart, 1. The second loop through will display a message box that will say number of cans of green beans in cart, 2. And the third loop through will display a message box that will say number of cans in cart, 3. Now for more information on message boxes and how to use them in your scripts, please watch one of my other videos where I go into more information on those. Now, if we have already placed all of the cans of green beans in our cart, we need to go through and update the value of the available variable to false to indicate that there are no more cans of green beans available. Now, let's go back through quickly and review over the information that we've typed in. We began on line 1 by creating our flag variable of available, and we assigned a value of true to it. We've created our do loop. We're using a counter variable that we'll use to be able to tell us how many iterations we've gone through the loop. We've created an if-then-else statement. The condition checker that we're using is checking to see whether I is less than or equal to 3. If I is less than or equal to 3, we'll be displaying a message box that will say number of cans of green beans in cart, and then it will show the iteration number. However, if we have already exceeded the 3 cans of green beans that we were looking to grab, the code within the else statement will be executed. And what that will do will change the value of the available variable from true to false. That would then exit out of the if statement. Then it would come down to the loop while statement. Now, if the available variable still equals true, the code will continue to loop through for another iteration. However, if the value of the available variable has been set to false, as it will when we have already grabbed all 3 of the cans of green beans, the loop at that point would stop and the script would continue on to the next line of code beneath the loop while statement. So we're now ready to run our script and see how this works. I'll be walking through the script line by line to show you this. The first line is retrieving the value of the available variable, which as you can see here in the bottom pane is showing a value of true. The next line is creating our counter variable, which you can see the name of the value of I and a value of 1. Since we are still less than or equal to 3 with the value of the I variable, we've come into line 5, which is the message box. As you can see, we're displaying the message box that says number of cans of green beans in cart is 1. So let's now click through the message box. It now moves us down to the bottom of the loop while statement. We'll step through that. It continued to loop since the value of the available variable is still true, as you can see here. After we step through line 3 with a counter variable, we can see that it has incremented the value of the counter variable from 1 to 2, since this is our second iteration. Since we are still less than or equal to 3 on our number of iterations, we'll now be shown a message box. And again, it says number of cans of green beans in cart, 2, since this is our second iteration. We now come to the bottom of our loop statement. So since the available variable is still equal to true, as you can see here, the script will continue in the loop. We now come to our counter variable again. Since this is our third loop, we now see a value of 3 for I. Our if statement again is checking. Since I is now equal to 3, we still meet the condition. So we'll still display another message box, which now shows our iteration count as 3. We come down to the end of our loop, and our condition still has available equals true, since we were still underneath or equal to the number of cans of green beans that were there. Stepping through it again, I now equals 4. So when we come down to our condition checker with the if statement, we now are no longer less than or equal to 3, so the code within the else statement will now be executed, which will now set the value of the available variable to false, which is an update because it had been true before. Our script now comes down and checks the value in the available variable, and it's looking to see does it still equal true. And as you can see here, it no longer equals true, it now equals false, since we have exceeded the number of cans of green beans that were available to us. So when I step through this, you'll see that the script has now completed, since there were no lines of code beneath that. Now, I'll show you what you need to do the do loop while condition checker at the top of the do loop instead of at the bottom of the do loop. So to do this, what I need to do is locate the while available equals true text, which is on line 9. When you find that, highlight over that text and then cut that out. Click your mouse at the end of line 2, so the cursor should be right after the letter O. Hit the space bar to create a space. Now, when you do that, you'll notice that QTP will think that you're looking to create a new do loop. So what you need to do is just highlight over lines 3 and 4, which are now in your script, delete those, then hit the backspace key one more time to put the cursor right after the word do. Now I wanted to show you that just in case you were to do that and see those extra lines of script popped up, so that way you would know what had happened. So keep the mouse cursor right after the letter O and paste in the text that we had cut out a few moments ago. You'll see that once you did that, the word do and while are together. There's no space between them. What you need to do is click right after the letter O, but before the letter W, then hit the space bar. You'll notice that once you do that, it separates it and then it picks up on the syntax of the words. Well, now go ahead and rerun our script again so that I can show you that those condition checkers work the same, with the do while loop condition being at the top of the loop instead of at the bottom of the loop. You'll see there's our first message box, the second, and the third. This now concludes our video where I've answered the following 3 questions. First, what is a do while loop? Second, what is a real-world example of how to use a do while loop? And third, how do I write the code to use it? As a reminder, to stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button. Thank you, and I hope that you have a great day.